Jaden, why is it so challenging to get in the market right now?
With auction clearance rates up, migration up, rental costs up, people are trying to get in the market, but it's just gotten harder and harder. And while earlier in the year they were saying interest rates are going to slow things down, it seems to have had the opposite effect. It's limited supply, and it's made it so much harder to get in the market. So in this video, we're going to take you through how to get into a challenging market like it is today.
First off, we've got 3 tips that will help you get in the market sooner, especially given it's so challenging. Starting off from the top, which is being very specific in what you want. Jaden, why is this important?
John sent me a text earlier today. We got his pre-approval over 2.5 months ago. And at the time, him and his wife had decided on buying a home in the outer suburbs of Brisbane. Fast forward to today, he messaged and said, actually, we've only just landed on the suburb we want to buy in. It's taken them 8 weeks to find that out. And this is what we see. It's a pretty common occurrence. People come to us and say, yep, I'm ready for my pre-approval, but haven't even been to an open home.
Yeah, if you've seen our previous videos before, I even experienced this myself when I first looked for my first home. It took me 18 months to realize that I needed to be very specific in what I was after. Did I want a house, townhouse, a unit? Which areas did I want to be? North side of Brisbane, south side of Brisbane, or west side? Once you become specific, everything falls into place nice and easily.
And we're not just talking about area, I'm talking actual properties. So one thing I'd encourage you to do right now, if you're looking at buying, is jump on realestate.com.au, go to the sold section, and as hard as it might be, find 3 properties that you would have bought that are broadly within your budget. Now, if you can't find that, if you're like, I found one that sold 3 years ago, then your budget expectations might not meet your actual home expectations.
A good example of this is if you're looking in Brisbane and let's say you want to spend $800,000 for a house in Paddington, 2-bedroom home. If I go on realestate.com and I search sold properties in Paddington with the filters at 2 bedrooms and I see every property is going for $1 million plus, well then my expectations are not going to really match what's available in the market. So having a very clear and concise strategy and making sure it's actually going to work is super important.
The other thing too, and a sort of adjunct of this, is even going to open homes a little bit earlier. I find personally, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, that the photos online at realestate.com.au and Domain are magic. They make every property look amazing, light, bright, and breezy. But when you actually go there and you see them in reality, you can be disappointed. There can be highway noise, it can be loud, it can be smelly, it can be moldy. And the more experience you get in this process, the better you're going to be placed for when you find the right home. So definitely go check out homes now, look at sold houses, and find 3 places that you would have otherwise bought in your budget.
Let's move on to the second tip, which is getting comfortable with the numbers. Jaden, what does this look like?
Yeah, so it's all good and well finding homes that you want to buy, but if you don't know what your numbers are, or if it completely turns your stomach to think about what the mortgage repayment is going to be, then there's kind of no point setting that $1 million budget. This is where a mortgage broker can help. We can run through your borrowing capacity, look at what the bank's actually going to lend you, look at what's possible with your deposit amount, and marry the 2 up. A quick and dirty way of even working out that what you're comfortable with is looking at what you're paying in rent at the moment, adding on what you're saving a week, and potentially working out, well, at the moment, I'm comfortable paying $600 a week, and that's where I want my repayment to be.
And even looking on our website, we've got a mortgage repayment calculator where you can calculate what repayments look like if rates were 6%, 7%, 8%, or if they came back down. So you can get to know what the worst case, best case scenarios sort of look like. The other thing you want to be doing is getting comfortable with your numbers is when you do look to get your pre-approval in place, is not going for a number that's too less or too high or something in between. You got to find that number where you're going, that's my cutoff. A lot of our clients I sometimes see get a pre-approval. Maybe they're looking for properties at 600,000, but they go, let's get pre-approved at 600,000. They come back to me after 3 or 4 weeks. We've got the pre-approval in place and they actually say, Nathan, I need 650 to actually make this work. So get comfortable with your numbers, but also make sure you're getting your finances sorted based on a realistic figure.
Yeah, an interesting strategy here, I guess from the bank's perspective, is when you get a pre-approval, they're happy to reduce the pre-approval. They'll still honor the existing pre-approval you have. But if they increase it, it's increasing their risk and they have to reassess it. So in that case, if you've got a pre-approval for 650, the bank's fine if you're buying something for 600, 550, 500, because you're reducing the pre-approval, it's lower risk, and it still works on the original document. If you increase it, it changes the LVR potentially, it changes their figures, their workings, they need to reassess it, and it can risk your pre-approval when you find your home.
And this is where getting comfortable with the numbers in this specific example is important. If your budget's $600,000, maybe you need to get comfortable with a slightly higher purchase, because a lot of people cut themselves off at $600, where you might actually have success between $600 and $610 or $620. So getting comfortable with a slightly higher figure, and if that's an absolute no-no, then you know in the back of your mind, well, we've given that a go, we need to stick at 600 and below and find different areas that might be more suitable. Let's move on to point number 3, which is trimming down your terms. Jaden, how do we do this one?
So for some people, it can take months to find your right home. Other people, it takes years. It takes a while. But when you do finally find the right home, you don't want to miss out by a few $1,000s or by some lousy conditions. And this happened to a client of mine literally earlier today. Tim had an offer on a home. There were 2 contracts. They were his and another person's. His solicitor unfortunately told him to put an extra clause on there saying it's subject to satisfactory council checks. Now, it's a good clause to have there to protect your interests, but unfortunately from the seller's perspective, it's an extra clause that the other contract didn't have, and it made them take the other contract of sale. So keep this in mind. You want to be protecting yourself, you want to protect your interests, but you have to also realize in a competitive market, things like extra clauses, longer finance terms, smaller deposits can all impact how the seller sees you, how even the real estate agent's going to advertise you or explain you to the seller, and potentially cause you to miss out.
And this is where sometimes we even say, you got to be careful, because the real estate agents can really literally say anything. But if you do hear there's another offer, sometimes you also need to sign a multiple offer form. And that's where you need to be going in with your best and final offer. Especially if the agent's giving you a warning that there's another offer in play, you want to trim down your terms. So instead of putting 14 days finance, 14 days billing and pest, you might go 7 days finance, 7 days billing and pest, where you're really being competitive. So hopefully you're not going to lose out on terms. You'll only lose out if they're going to put a much higher offer, or an offer that's maybe going to be taken for other reasons.
Yeah, Sal had used the strategy of ours for another video, and instead of offering just around 700,000, she went 702,600. And that 2,600 was enough to secure the contract because the seller's just looking for the highest offer. So keep that in mind too. Odd numbers, although it feels a bit silly, although your budget might be, whatever it might be, you want to be able to round it up slightly to secure that home.
Once again, that's because everyone's sort of setting themselves up. 700's the cap. Well, if you go 1,000 over, then you might be okay. Do be careful with some of the things around stamp duty, government schemes. They can have caps such as 700,000. If you go above that, you might miss out on some schemes and grants there, but definitely a good one to think about. Guys, here at Hunter Galloway, we're a mortgage broker. We deal with people Australia-wide, and hopefully these 3 strategies will help get you into the market sooner. If you do need assistance with finance, reach out with us at huntergalloway.com.au or call us directly on 1300 088 065, and we'll see you next time.